So May the 25th was GDPR Day. We're a few months in, and what are organizations doing today? Do you feel that everyone is on top of it, or some still struggling?
I talk to customers that are across the entire range. On one end, you've got customers that have been working on it for the last two and a half years, trying to get ahead of this and being ready by the 25th of May. And then you've got customers sort of somewhere in between where they're actually, they've bootstrapped their GDPR programs, they've done some data inventory, they're getting their arms around the requirements and how they're actually going to implement the technical and organizational measures that they need to implement. And then on, the far end of that scale is people that have been waiting because they really want to see what the environment looks like, the regulatory environment looks like with GDPR post May 25th. And so, and some of those folks haven't done anything yet. And so I see, customers across the whole range.
Right. Does that sound familiar, Dob, or are you seeing something different?
Absolutely. We see exactly the same. And in addition to that as well, there is a lot of organizations that are just establishing new applications, new workloads, new business systems in place. And for all of these new business systems, we clearly are going to need GDPR. I think hardly any organization operating in Europe these days would be in a position whereby GDPR does not apply to them. The majority of the data that organizations collect today probably has an element of personal data to it, and therefore for each and every new application and system, we will have to consider the impact of GDPR regulation upon it as well. So the 25th of May is obviously a date when it came into force, but at the same time, it is going to be an ongoing process. I don't think that there was a waterfall on the 25th of May, and from that point onwards, we are not going to see demand for GDPR compliance. Actually, going forward, that's going to be an ongoing activity and a considerable consideration for many organizations when it comes to the compliance regimes that they need to comply.
Yeah, right. So it seems like there's still quite a little bit to be done for some organizations, and for other organizations, they probably want to do a bit more. So what, therefore, would your advice be to firms and organizations in terms of what to do next? And of course, the obvious question is, how can the AWS cloud assist them?
Absolutely. I think it would be fair to say that many organizations have already established their cloud governance. And if an organization has already established cloud governance, I think they're in a very good position. Whether they're using cloud services directly or whether through the various other services and providers that they operate, whether they're actually using cloud services without even knowing that that cloud is there to provide these services to them, such organizations are going to be in a good position because they've established cloud governance. And for such organizations, moving their personal data into the cloud and establishing secure and compliant environments on the AWS platform is going to be the best way forward. And that's because the AWS platform is probably the most capable platform when it comes to personal data protection. And organizations are going to find it very straightforward to establish such capabilities on AWS. Organizations that have not established cloud governance are perhaps those that need to consider looking into what their future in the cloud is going to be, coming up with a vision and a strategy for their cloud adoption. And clearly, once they have established such a cloud strategy, they would have to consider GDPR as part of that as well. Right. But cloud is the future of every workloads that I think we are going to see in the next couple of years. And with that in mind, organizations should be prepared to take the cloud journey, and GDPR is going to be part of that, of course.
Sure. Very good. Tim, advice on how does the cloud help? How does AWS help?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of synonyms for cloud and AWS, like flexibility, agility, speed, security. And these things are true when it comes to GDPR as well. So I do believe that the cloud can help our customers by accelerating the entire process. Doing inventory and data is actually a lot easier if you're using something like S3 Select or Glacier Select. It allows you to do SQL queries and find the data that you've been looking for. Using EC2 images, using AI and ML, using a portfolio of over 120 services at this point. You've got all of that power, you've got all that flexibility, and you can get started immediately. You can leverage that stuff to actually get compliant, not with GDPR, but your entire compliance program can be supported by that and actually achieve better security than you can do on premise with a fraction of the time and effort and probably a fraction of the cost. And so that's the way I think about AWS and cloud, is just being a synonym for getting things done a lot faster.
Very good. Well, thank you. Well, gentlemen, time's up, but it's been a pleasure having this conversation today. And thanks very much for your insight and for your wise words. Please join us again in conversation for all things GDPR.